Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to present here today. My presentation is about how I've managed to balance my civilian career and Air Force career over the last 15 years and how this positively contributes to air-mindedness and aviation culture. The images before you indicate the hospitals that I've worked in over my 20-year nursing and midwifery career. My initial nursing training was undertaken at the Royal Melbourne and Alfred Hospitals, two major tertiary referral centres in Melbourne. These hospitals provided me with the foundation of my nursing skills, critical thinking, analysing and decision-making skills. Not that I knew it at the time, however, these were skills I would also need as an officer in the Air Force. My midwifery training was undertaken at the Royal Women's Hospital, also in Melbourne, another major tertiary referral hospital. An advantage of working in these tertiary referral centres is having every gadget, tool, screen, professional and service available and feeling hard done by if it's not. These hospitals perform amazing medical and nursing feats every day. They're not perfect, but they strive for the best outcome for their patients, shift after shift, day after day. I then moved to Mildura and worked there for 2 years, consolidating my midwifery skills. Mildura was a fantastic hospital to work in. It's a rural district referral hospital. In a rural setting, there is definitely not all the gadgets, tools, professionals and services available. That's okay. While initially it is a shock, you relearn to use your foundation skills, your clinical assessment, communications with your patients and colleagues, and you had to be able to make decisions. Lives depended on it. And this is familiar in an Air Force setting. Air-mindedness has similar concepts. Understanding what is going on around you in the battle space. Make decisions based on your assessment of the circumstances. I bring to the Air Force 20 plus years of clinical experience working in a variety of roles, gained from a multitude of hospital settings. From this, I've contributed to the Air Force health policy, clinical governance, instructor roles, deployment, and I'm currently posted to DP as the Career Manager for Health Reserves. These pictures show what I've been able to do as an Air Force officer. A variety of Air Force health training, belonging and participating in unit functions, and deployment. It can be a challenge negotiating with civilian employment, preparing to have time off to complete mandatory Air Force training, when you can be panelled on a course 2 weeks prior to a course starting. Hospitals plan their staffing 4 to 6 to 8 weeks out, or you plan to attend a course, organise your civilian work cover to be told you've been unsuccessful in panelling, you're not a priority. Balancing your career. The Air Force recruited me for my specialist clinical skills. The Air Force has mandatory training to be completed before those skills can be effectively utilised in an Air Force setting. These are the points to negotiate with your squadron to become a priority to receive the required training. Civilian employers get the benefit of the Employer Support Program. It's a financial contribution to a reservist's employer to enable the reservists to attend the military training, exercises and operations. Leaders that have inspired me throughout my career. Brand new to the Air Force, I'm a highly skilled clinician. Who do I look to learn how to become a highly skilled Air Force officer? I look straight to the top. In late 2007, Sir Angus Houston came to Melbourne for the Reserve Day March. It was a typical Melbourne day. It was grey, overcast, misty drizzle. It was freezing cold. As I'm sure you'll all remember, 2007-2008 was a very high tempo for operations, training and humanitarian operations. In his address, Sir Angus's message was, "You are all part of my workforce. I thank you for your commitment, your contribution. You will all face challenges, both personal and professional." What I took from this was that I am part of the Air Force. I can and I will contribute. Air Commodore Lumsden's the Director General of Health Reserves Air Force. She's my category inspiration. Air Commodore Lumsden has also maintained a dual career, working clinically at the Alfred Hospital in a variety of roles in intensive care and emergency nursing settings, while significantly contributing to Air Force and Air Force Health. Air Commodore Lumsden is a key example to me of someone who has successfully forged a dual career, worked out how to balance civilian work and life, as well as serving in the Air Force. Florence Nightingale was a pioneer of nursing and nursing education and training. She documented in diaries and journals her findings during the Crimean War, then implemented these findings in her nursing courses. Two key findings remain highly relevant to nursing today, and these are the regular assessment of your patients. This is how she got the nickname of the lady with the lamp. Florence Nightingale continuously assessed and reviewed her patients. Second, hand hygiene. She implemented washing her hands between seeing her patients and between doing procedures. Not surprisingly now, Florence noticed a significant decrease in the mortality of her patients with this one simple implementation. Hand hygiene, or lack of it, is still the most significant contributing factor of spreading of pathogens in a healthcare setting. Moral of the story, wash your hands. Sister Vivian Bullwinkle was another amazing nurse who, despite the significant challenges she faced, she worked tirelessly to better nursing and nursing opportunities. Sister Bullwinkle was the director of, when she retired from the Army, she was the director of nursing at the Fairfield Infectious Diseases Hospital in Melbourne. Here, she fought for training for her nurses to improve their knowledge and skills to better care for their patients, many of them being returned service personnel. These four outstanding leaders, and there are many more within the Air Force, to me, all have the listed attributes which I believe are key to being an outstanding and positive leader. I've been really fortunate in being able to maintain a dual career. I've maintained my clinical skills in nursing and midwifery and expanded my nursing in the Air Force, learning about aviation, the stresses and effect of aviation can have on aircrew, as well as the effect of altitude on the sick and injured. The Air Force has contributed significantly in developing my leadership and management skills, which my civilian employers have benefited from. For many years, I've worked in team leader roles, educator roles, management roles, which the Air Force has also benefited from. Complexities of the reserve world include being posted to positions in a state that you don't live in. Health reserve positions are mostly allocated to the deployable health units, 1 EHS, 2 EHS, 3 AIMS, and then there are reserve days to bid for in the garrison space. Trying to contribute and participate with a unit in Queensland when you live in Victoria or Canberra is difficult and costly for the unit. I've always managed to work reserve days in the location where I live. I haven't always been able to attend the units that I've actually been posted to. Getting released from civilian work for training is not always easy. While in the long term, my employer also has the benefit of the training I receive from the military, they, like the PAF parent unit, has to manage with a reduced workforce while you are away. Federal law ensures reservists keep their employment and are actually released from their civilian employment for mandatory military training. In my experience, the wider PAF thinks reservists are either an asset to their team, understanding the specialised skill sets they bring to the workplace, or they don't. There's very little in between. With comments over my career such as, "Oh, you're one of those reserve types," or "Oh, you're just a reservist." Let me assure you all, I'm not just an anything. I am many things. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, a nurse, a midwife, I'm an Air Force officer, but I'm not just anything. Again, in my opinion, the reserve workforce is similar to a casual workforce. Who's worked in a unit where the PAF deploy or go on exercise and it's the reserve staff that backfill and keep their units ticking by? Or they have reserve working on projects in the background, but reserve bids, April, May, reserve days are cut, financial cuts, and then suddenly the projects get stopped because there's no one actually there to complete them. Reservists complete much of the same training as their PAF counterparts. Sir Angus considered us part of his workforce, PAF or reserve, we are actually all one Air Force. Having an understanding of air-mindedness, understanding the requirements of aircrew duties, understanding, particularly while deployed, my role as the OIC of the health team was to ensure the availability of medical services and support to enable flying operations. This meant being available when aircrew or the maintenance teams needed us, not being available 8 till 4. This meant providing training when requested to ensure the training elements of the teams were maintained. Medical is just one cog in the wheel to support and achieve air operations. When we were advised that CAF was visiting Al Dhafra, I engaged with the commander of the U-2 Global Hawk Squadron for CAF to visit his squadron and be shown around those platforms. Australia is investing millions of dollars in acquiring the Triton. The US Global Hawk is a very similar platform to the Triton. So I thought this was a really unique opportunity for CAF to see these platforms on operations. By all accounts of those who were involved had a positive experience, and we further developed bonds with the coalition forces. At Al Dhafra, the Australian medical team worked within the US medical facility. We were welcomed and included as part of the team. We were exposed to unique medical requirements of the U-2 pilots. We were also welcomed over to the French facility, and we shared the uniqueness that is Australia with the coalition forces. We worked with the US team to resuscitate an American soldier who did not follow safety procedures in a confined space. Due to this man's condition, it was not expected for him to survive. However, we were part of the team who kept his heart beating, had him transferred to the local trauma centre, then airlifted to Germany, where his family were able to say their farewells to a warm body rather than receive a corpse at the other end. When the Australian doctor was sick, and he was sick for nearly a month, the US medical team supported us, being available for any aviation medical requirements. We assisted and supported each other to maintain capability. In this coalition setting, the broad clinical skills of the Australian team was noticed. For example, the US team segments their roles of their medics and nurses, meaning the US team had 3 medics, all allocated to specific tasks. My medic was trained and expected to do all 3. In my opinion, the capability and training of the Australian team was far more efficient. Medical was approached by the maintenance team leader of the KC-30 and asked if we could provide BLS training for their team. We offered this training to all Australian personnel, conducted the sessions out of hours, at times to suit the KC-30 team and to ensure capability was not impacted. Around this time, there was talk that the US military were considering removing all AED devices because there wasn't a current policy in place for the maintenance or training of the AEDs. My doctor, Ben, and I were approached by one of the US doctors and also the flying squadron commanders who were down in the bottom middle there, and asked if we could actually provide them with BLS training rather than have their AED devices removed. We did. Ben and I ended up training approximately 300 US flying personnel. Surprisingly for us, this was the first time some of these people had ever actually received this training. We contributed to safety, we taught life-saving skills, we built positive relationships with the coalition forces. I'm really privileged to maintain 2 careers, which I thoroughly enjoy. Balancing my 2 careers, although it's had its challenges, has been incredibly rewarding. I have the support of my family to achieve my dreams and goals in both of my careers. While my children had their struggles last year while I was deployed, from that they learned resilience, they learned strategies to live day by day in a circumstance they didn't want and had no control over, being that their mother was away. While my husband has forgotten how to cook since October 28, his pride and support of my career has been key in me achieving my goals. Life to me is about communication, having goals to achieve, and balance. My future is to continue to raise my children to be decent humans who will contribute to society. While I can contribute effectively both at John James Hospital and to the Air Force, I will continue to do that. Thank you.